Let me ask you something that might sting a little. When was the last time you told someone exactly what you were thinking, exactly what you were feeling, exactly what you wanted, and it didn't end up being used against you later? I'm not talking about small talk or surface pleasantries. I'm talking about the real stuff, the vulnerable stuff, the truth that lives in the deepest parts of you. You opened up, you shared, you made yourself known. And what happened? Maybe they looked at you differently. Maybe they grew distant. Maybe they filed that information away and brought it back out when they needed ammunition. Or maybe, worst of all, they understood you so completely that they now know exactly how to control you. This is what nobody tells you about vulnerability. This is what nobody warns you about when they preach radical honesty and authentic connection. Being understood is not always a gift. Sometimes it's a trap. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is let someone see all of you. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. When he wrote The Prince in 1532, he wasn't just offering advice to rulers. He was exposing a fundamental truth about human nature that applies to every relationship, every interaction, every moment you choose to reveal yourself to others. Machiavelli watched powerful men fall not because they were weak, but because they were understood. Their enemies knew their patterns, their fears, their desires. And that knowledge became a weapon. We live in a world that worships transparency. Everyone's telling you to open up, to share your story, to be your authentic self. Therapy culture has convinced us that healing only happens when we expose our wounds to the light. Social media has trained us to broadcast our inner lives for validation. Self-help gurus promise that genuine connection comes from radical vulnerability. But Machiavelli would call this strategic suicide. In chapter 23 of The Prince, he warns that a ruler who reveals too much of his thinking becomes predictable, and predictability is death. He writes that wise princes keep their counsel close and reveal their intentions only when action makes revelation inevitable. Why? Because every piece of information you share is a piece of power you surrender. Here's what they're not telling you. Every time you make yourself known, you're also making yourself controllable. Every time you reveal your fears, you're handing someone a map to your weaknesses. Every time you share what matters most to you, you're showing them exactly where to strike if they ever need to hurt you. Think about the people who have power in your life. Not the loud ones. Not the ones who dominate conversations or demand attention. I'm talking about the ones who truly hold influence. The ones people respect. The ones who move through the world with quiet authority. What do they all have in common? They're hard to read. They don't overshare. They don't perform their emotions for an audience. They maintain a certain mystery, a certain distance, a certain untouchability. Not because they're cold or disconnected, but because they understand something Machiavelli taught 5 centuries ago. People can't manipulate what they don't understand. Machiavelli studied the great leaders of history, Caesar Borgia, Pope Alexander VI, the ancient Romans. And he noticed a pattern. The rulers who lasted weren't necessarily the kindest or the most honest or the most transparent. They were the ones who controlled information. They were the ones who revealed only what served their interests. They were the ones who understood that in a world of competing interests, your inner world is your last fortress. And once that fortress is breached, you have nothing left. Let me tell you about one of Machiavelli's most controversial teachings, the one that made priests condemn his work and kings study it in secret. In chapter 18, he writes about the necessity of appearing to be what you're not. He says a prince must seem merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious, but be ready to act opposite when necessary. People called him evil for this. They called him cynical. But Machiavelli wasn't teaching deception for its own sake. He was teaching protection. He was teaching that in a world where people judge you by what they see, controlling what they see is not manipulation, it's survival. He was teaching that the gap between who you are and who people think you are is not dishonesty. It's strategic distance. It's the space where your real self remains safe from those who would exploit it. Why do we overshare? Because we're desperate to be seen. We're desperate to be understood. We're desperate to feel less alone in our private experiences. So we offer up our inner worlds like gifts, hoping someone will cherish them. But Machiavelli would ask you this. When you give a gift to someone, do you first ensure they're worthy of receiving it? Do you first test whether they'll honor what you've given or squander it? Most people don't cherish your truth. They catalog it. They measure it against their own interests. They decide whether knowing you makes you useful or threatening or irrelevant. And the moment you become irrelevant to their goals, everything you've shared becomes ammunition they can use to diminish you, dismiss you, or destroy you. Machiavelli watched this happen in the courts of Florence and Rome. He saw noble men confess their doubts to allies who became enemies. He saw powerful families share their strategies with confidants who sold that information to rivals. He saw princes who governed with transparent honesty get overthrown by princes who governed with strategic opacity. The lesson was clear. In matters of power, and all relationships are matters of power, vulnerability is a luxury only the secure can afford. And no one is ever truly secure. This doesn't mean you should trust no one. Machiavelli himself had close friendships and wrote intimate letters. But he understood the difference between intimacy and exposure. He knew that you could be close to someone without revealing everything. That you could care deeply for someone without making yourself completely known. That love and strategic silence are not opposites. They're partners in any relationship that lasts. Here's what Machiavelli teaches us in Chapter 3. Men ought either to be well treated or crushed because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, of more serious ones they cannot. Apply this to emotional vulnerability. When you share small truths with someone, light injuries to your privacy, they can use those against you later. They remember, they store it, they bring it back when convenient. But if you've shared everything, if you've crushed yourself through total transparency, you've given them so much information that you've actually destroyed your own ability to be avenged. You've made yourself so known, so predictable, so controllable that you can't even defend yourself anymore because they know every move you'll make before you make it. They know which buttons to push. They know which wounds to reopen. They know exactly how to keep you small. Let me be clear about something. This isn't about becoming cold or closed off. This isn't about building walls so high that no one can ever reach you. This is about what Machiavelli called virtù, a concept that goes beyond virtue as we understand it. Virtù is the combination of strength, cunning, and adaptability. It's the ability to read situations and respond appropriately. Sometimes that means openness. Often it means restraint. A person with virtù knows that silence is not weakness. It's power held in reserve. They know that mystery is not dishonesty. It's wisdom about human nature. They know that privacy is not secrecy. It's the understanding that not everything sacred should be spoken. Machiavelli wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Think about what that means for your life right now. Everyone around you is judging you based on what they can see, what you've revealed, what you've performed. But very few people, maybe no one, truly experiences what you really are in your depths, in your contradictions, in your full complexity. And here's the crucial question. Do you want them to? Do you want to be fully experienced, fully known, fully understood by people who haven't proven they can handle that knowledge responsibly? Or do you want to protect what's real about you until you find a rare person who has earned access to it? Most people haven't earned it. They haven't proven themselves worthy of your truth. They haven't demonstrated that they'll protect what you share rather than exploit it. And Machiavelli would tell you that giving your truth to unworthy people is not generosity or authenticity. It's foolishness. Watch how people handle small confidences before you give them big ones. Watch how they treat information about others before you tell them about yourself. Watch whether they can hold silence or whether they need to fill every space with their own voice. These are tests, and most people fail them. Machiavelli tested people constantly. He observed, he waited, He revealed only when revelation served his purpose, never before. There's a reason The Prince was revolutionary and remains controversial. Machiavelli removed the mask of polite society and showed what actually governs human behavior: self-interest, fear, desire for power, need for security. He didn't say this was good or bad. He said this is reality. And if you want to survive in reality, you need to understand it as it is, not as you wish it to be. Apply this to your relationships. You wish people would handle your vulnerability with care. You wish they would protect what you share. You wish they would use their knowledge of you only for good. But wishing doesn't make it so. Machiavelli's entire philosophy can be summed up in one sentence: hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. In matters of vulnerability, preparing for the worst means limiting what you expose. People will pressure you. They'll call you closed off. They'll accuse you of being guarded or defensive or unwilling to be vulnerable. They'll make you feel like there's something wrong with you for not opening up on their timeline, according to their needs, in service of their curiosity. But Machiavelli would ask, why are they so insistent? What do they gain from your revelation? Because in his worldview, every human action is motivated by self-interest. When someone pressures you to be more vulnerable, to share more, to explain yourself more, they're not doing it for your benefit. They're doing it because understanding you serves their interests. It makes you easier to navigate, easier to predict, easier to manage. Here's what they're really saying: I want access to you so I can understand you better, so I can predict you better, so I can control you better. Sometimes it's conscious, often it's not, but the effect is the same. They want to reduce your mystery. They want to eliminate your complexity. They want to fit you into a category they already understand, so they don't have to do the difficult work of being present with your unknowability. Let them be uncomfortable with your silence. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them question whether they really know you. Because Machiavelli teaches in chapter 19 that a prince should make himself feared and respected, but never predictable. The same applies to you. You should be respected, maybe even loved, but never fully predictable. Never completely understood. The moment someone thinks they've completely figured you out, they stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a character in their story. A supporting role, a predictable element, someone they no longer need to pay attention to because they already know your lines. And once you're predictable, you're disposable. Think about the people who have hurt you most deeply in your life. How do they know where to aim? Because you showed them. You trusted them with your vulnerable places, and when the relationship soured, they struck exactly where you'd revealed your soft underbelly. Machiavelli would say this is not betrayal, this is human nature. When people are in conflict with you, they will use every available weapon. And the weapons you've handed them, your fears, your insecurities, your deepest desires, those are the ones that cut deepest. This isn't cynicism, this is realism. Machiavelli has been called cynical for 500 years, but he would reject that label. He'd say he simply observed human behavior without the comforting delusions that most people wrap around it. People are capable of great kindness and terrible cruelty, often toward the same person, often in the same week. The question is, will you navigate this reality with strategic wisdom or with naive exposure? I'm not saying everyone will betray you. I'm saying that giving everyone access to everything about you is strategic foolishness. Machiavelli writes in chapter 23 that a prince who is not himself wise cannot be wisely advised. Similarly, a person who doesn't understand the risks of vulnerability cannot protect themselves from its consequences. You don't owe anyone your pain. You don't owe anyone your story. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you are the way you are. Machiavelli would tell you that the most intimate relationship you'll ever have is with yourself, and that relationship is destroyed when you constantly perform it for an audience, when you seek validation from those who haven't earned the right to validate you. Here's the uncomfortable truth that Machiavelli understood, and that will change your life if you let it sink in. Most people don't actually want to understand you. They want to understand enough about you to place you in their hierarchy, to determine whether you're useful or threatening or irrelevant to their goals. They want to understand enough to predict your behavior. They want to understand enough to feel comfortable around you. But true understanding, true seeing, that requires effort, patience, and presence that most people aren't willing to give. So they settle for a shallow understanding, a cartoon version of who you are. And if you've overshared, you've helped them create that cartoon. You've handed them the markers and outlined yourself in ways that strip away your complexity. Stop doing that. Start understanding that silence is not emptiness. It's power held in reserve. Mystery is not dishonesty. It's strategic protection. Privacy is not secrecy. It's wisdom about human nature. You can be authentic without being transparent. You can be genuine without being an open book. You can be connected without being consumed. Machiavelli's greatest insight wasn't about politics or war or princes. It was about the fundamental loneliness of power, and everyone has power over their own life, which means everyone is fundamentally alone. The rulers who accepted this loneliness and governed from it survived. The rulers who tried to escape it through oversharing, through seeking to be understood by everyone, through making themselves transparent, they fell. You're not a ruler of a kingdom, but you are the ruler of your own existence. And Machiavelli's lessons apply. Accept your essential unknowability. Embrace the loneliness that comes with protecting your depths. Understand that being partially misunderstood is safer than being completely known. The people who truly matter, the ones who are worthy of your depth, won't demand explanations. They won't pressure you to reveal more than you're ready to share. They'll be comfortable with what you choose not to say. They'll respect the boundaries you set. They'll understand that your silence is not rejection, it's protection. These are rare people. Machiavelli had perhaps 2 or 3 in his entire life. You'll be lucky to have more. And here's what's beautiful about this. What Machiavelli discovered in his final years. When you stop seeking to be understood by everyone, something shifts. You become more present. You become more powerful. You become more yourself. Not the performed version of yourself that seeks approval, but the authentic version that exists whether anyone understands it or not. This is the dangerous comfort of being understood. It feels so good in the moment. It feels like connection. It feels like intimacy. It feels like you're finally not alone. But Machiavelli would call it trap, because true comfort, true peace, true power comes not from being understood by others, but from understanding yourself so completely that their understanding becomes optional, not necessary. So here's what I want you to consider as you move forward, what Machiavelli would want you to consider. What would change in your life if you stopped trying to be understood? What would shift if you protected your inner world with the same strategic thinking that Machiavelli advised princes to protect their kingdoms? What would happen if you let people wonder, let them question, let them sit in the discomfort of not quite knowing who you are? You become what Machiavelli called formidable, not unreachable, but uncontrollable, not distant, but discerning, not cold, but strategic. And in a world that constantly tries to categorize, predict, and manipulate you, that's the most powerful position you can occupy. Machiavelli's final lesson is this. The prince who is most secure is not the one who is most loved or most understood, but the one who has made himself necessary while remaining mysterious. You are the prince of your own life. Make yourself necessary to those who matter, but never, ever make yourself completely understood. Being understood is overrated. Being underestimated while you move in silence, protected by the fortress of your inner world, that's where real power lies. That's what Machiavelli knew, and that's what will save you.